Is Ilia Topuria really ready to move up to lightweight and challenge for the title? Team Makhachev isn't convinced, and they're making it clear he needs to prove himself first. Ilia Topuria may have just shocked the world by dismantling Alexander Volkanovski, but does that really make him a legit lightweight contender? According to Team Makhachev, the answer is a resounding no. They're not interested in featherweights jumping the line. They want Topuria to earn his shot the hard way. So what's the real reason behind this demand? Is it just about competition, or is there a bigger game being played behind the scenes? We'll break down why Islam Makhachev's team is pushing back against Topuria's immediate title hopes, what this means for the division, and whether or not Topuria will actually accept the challenge to fight a top lightweight before getting his shot. If you're wondering whether this fight is happening next, or if Topuria is about to take a detour, stay tuned. We've got all the details you need. Team Makhachev is questioning Ilia Topuria's legitimacy as a lightweight contender because they believe he has yet to prove himself in the division. While Topuria has been vocal about wanting a fight with Islam Makhachev, and UFC insiders suggest that the promotion is planning to grant him an immediate title shot, Makhachev and his camp aren't convinced that Topuria has done enough to earn it. One of the key reasons for their skepticism is that Topuria has never fought at lightweight in the UFC. While he has dominated at featherweight and recently vacated his title to move up, that doesn't automatically make him a credible challenger in a new weight class. Makhachev, who has established himself as the dominant force at 155 pounds, sees Topuria's call-out as an attempt to skip the line without facing top-ranked lightweights first. Another major factor is Makhachev's recent track record. Despite being the reigning champion, he has faced criticism for primarily fighting featherweights who moved up to challenge him. Of his 4 title defenses, 3 were against former 145-pounders. Alexander Volkanovski twice, and Dustin Poirier, who started his career at featherweight before becoming a lightweight mainstay. This has led to a narrative that Makhachev is defending his title against smaller opponents rather than true lightweights. Because of this, Makhachev and his team seem reluctant to entertain another challenger moving up from 145. Especially when there are established contenders in the division who have already been competing at lightweight. The UFC's matchmaking decisions have also played a role in the debate. With the announcement of fights like Paddy Pimblett versus Michael Chandler, it appears that the UFC is setting up a lightweight title picture that may not include some of the top-ranked contenders. Instead, they seem to be prioritizing big-name fights, potentially fast-tracking Topuria to a title shot for business reasons rather than competitive merit. Makhachev and his team may feel that this undermines the integrity of the division, especially when fighters like Arman Tsarukyan and Charles Oliveira, both of whom were previously scheduled to fight Makhachev, had to withdraw due to injuries or other circumstances. Topuria has been dominant at featherweight, but moving up in weight comes with challenges, especially when facing bigger, stronger opponents who have already established themselves in the lightweight division. Makhachev's team argues that before Topuria gets a title shot, he should show that he can compete and win against high-level lightweights. Fighters like Poirier and Oliveira have long been considered elite in the division. and beating one of them would solidify Topuria's legitimacy as a true lightweight contender. From a competitive standpoint, this request makes sense. Makhachev has already defended his title against multiple featherweights moving up, including Alexander Volkanovski twice. While Volkanovski was a dominant featherweight champion, Makhachev's team doesn't want to continue fighting smaller opponents who haven't yet proven themselves in the division. By asking Topuria to earn his shot through a high-stakes fight, they are pushing for a title bout that carries more credibility. However, the UFC may not see it the same way. From a business perspective, Makhachev versus Topuria is one of the biggest fights the promotion can make right now. Topuria's rising star power, undefeated record, and recent dominant win over Volkanovski make him an appealing challenger. The UFC might be hesitant to risk that potential payday by forcing Topuria to fight Poirier or Oliveira first. If he were to lose, it could derail the hype and excitement surrounding a matchup with Makhachev. Ultimately, Topuria's path to a title shot comes down to whether the UFC prioritizes competitive merit or financial opportunity. If they side with Makhachev's team, Topuria will need to prove himself against a top-ranked lightweight before getting his shot. If they choose to fast-track him, he may bypass that challenge and go straight into a championship fight. Either way, the debate highlights the ongoing tension between merit-based matchmaking and the business side of the sport. If the UFC listens to Makhachev's team and books Topuria against a top contender like Dustin Poirier or Charles Oliveira first, it could push back a title fight for several months. These high-level matchups take time to set up, and there's always the possibility of injuries or fight cancellations that could extend the timeline even further. Even if Topuria wins, he might not be available to fight Makhachev for another 6 to 8 months, depending on how the fight plays out. Additionally, Makhachev may not want to wait around for Topuria. If the UFC decides to schedule him against someone else in the meantime, perhaps Arman Tsarukyan or Justin Gaethje, then the lightweight title picture could shift entirely, further delaying a potential Makhachev versus Topuria showdown. The biggest risk for Topuria is losing a fight against a top lightweight. While he's been dominant at featherweight, facing bigger, more experienced 155-pounders like Poirier or Oliveira is a whole different challenge. If Topuria takes a loss, his momentum would be gone, and the UFC would likely move on from the idea of an immediate title shot. Instead, he would have to work his way back up, potentially taking multiple fights before getting another chance at Makhachev. From a business standpoint, the UFC has a lot to consider. Right now, Makhachev versus Topuria is a huge fight with major financial appeal. If the UFC forces Topuria to prove himself first, and he loses, they might miss out on a high-profile title fight that could generate significant pay-per-view sales. That's why the promotion might decide to skip the contender fight altogether and book Topuria against Makhachev right away. At the end of the day, it all comes down to one big question. Will the UFC give Ilia Topuria an instant title shot, or will he have to prove himself first? Team Makhachev is standing firm, saying they don't want to fight another untested featherweight. But the UFC knows that Makhachev versus Topuria is a massive fight that could bring in huge numbers. If Topuria takes a contender fight and wins, there's no question he'll have earned his shot. But if he loses, the hype train could crash before it ever reaches Makhachev. And if the UFC ignores all of this and just books the fight anyway, well, we could be in for a war between two of the most exciting fighters in the game. Either way, the lightweight division is heating up, and things are about to get real interesting. Will Makhachev versus Topuria happen next, Or will this fight get delayed, or even scrapped entirely? Stay tuned, because we'll be watching every move to bring you the latest updates.